Everyone, and welcome to a night of Chair League Heroes of the Storm. Tonight we have a best of one between Arthritic Abathurs and Pepperidge Farm Remembers. I am your host Verdestrom, and here I'm personally very excited because this is the first game that I have been casting where Lucio is available as a support option. For those of you who I guess would be unaware, Lucio was released in the most recent patch for Heroes of the Storm, but due to the way that HGC and the current Blizzard tournament rules are running, none of the official tournaments are, the players aren't allowed to pick him yet, so I was kind of hoping that we might be able to see him here tonight. It looks like Pepperidge Farm Remembers is already a little concerned that Lucio might be a little strong considering he is sporting the highest win rate among supports right now, so I'm not really at all surprised to see Lucio come out as the ban for Pepperidge Farm Remembers, but it is a little bit disappointing. Also, on the technical end of things, before the stream started, I was having some difficulty making sure that my mic was a-okay, so if it sounds a little funny, just ignore that and pretend that I'm awesome and that nothing is going wrong. Talking about the picks real quick, we saw the Rag ban and the Lucio ban, both of which very kind of typical right now. Rag very strong and can be hard to deal with at all levels, and Lucio possibly overpowered, maybe he's fine, only time will tell. So we see the first pick on Braxis being Dehaka. Dehaka, a very powerful solo laner, is one of the best in the game, if not the best, honestly. Even if he can't kill his opponent, using the combination of his sustain on his trait and his global, he can pretty easily shove other people out of lane, if nothing else. Gul'dan and Malfurion, an interesting combo coming in from Pepperidge Farm Remembers. Gul'dan, this is probably his strongest map. Gul'dan has a kind of a strange position in Heroes of the Storm right now, where he's not the most popular mage, but there are particular maps where he's just really good on. Braxis Holdout being the most obvious one, Tomb of the Spider Queen probably being a second best map, and it's really just a function of his amazing wave clear, and that both his Q build and his E build you are able to complete a lot quicker if there are a lot of people in lane for you to get stacks off of. Malfurion pick, also not at all surprising. Malfurion is one of the strongest healers in the game right now, pretty much shut out only by Lucio, who just recently came out, so seeing an early Malfurion pickup is not at all surprising. The response for Arthritic Abathurs, which I also want to mention, is probably my favorite team name I've ever heard. I'm not trying to pick favorites here, but how do you beat a name like Arthritic Abathurs? It just can't be done. But anyway, we see Vala and Brightwing coming out for Arthritic Abathurs. The Brightwing pick is really interesting. They did decide to go ahead and pick up their second support. It looks like they're putting a lot of emphasis on globals, which I have mixed feelings about on Braxis Holdout. Obviously, having globals is important as it enables you to get that beacon control, which is very important for getting the huge Zerg waves to go in and crush your enemies. So that's why they have the Dehaka, the Brightwing, of just a lot of opportunity for them to jump lanes and help people who are getting outnumbered, or to turn a 1v1 into a 2v1, try to get picks and turn those picks into objectives. So interesting seeing the Brightwing coming out. It's also important to note that Brightwing is both kind of strong and weak in the 4-man. The area where Brightwing is strong, obviously, is the fact that she has this just free AoE healing, basically. Like, it's on her passive, it's not dependent on her mana pool, and she's just going to be doing it every few seconds to all of the heroes in her radius. So it's very strong, but at the same time, if someone gets really low, and that you can't exactly heal them faster, if that makes any sense. Like, you just have to wait for your passive to slowly tick up. So the Brightwing pick is really interesting. I'll be curious to see what they do about it. Brightwing does seem to be a fairly decent way to help deal with Gul'dan's damage. So overall, I like the pick. We'll see how they do it. The next two bans to come out are Diablo for Pepperidge Farm Remembers and Artanis for Arthritic Abathurs, both of which I think are fairly safe picks. Diablo has amazing initiation and works really well in a double tank setup because of his high amount of damage. So if Arthritic Abathurs had gotten Diablo, it would have really helped them get onto the Gul'dan in the backline. And for pretty much the same reason, the ban on Artanis is also pretty smart. This is one of his more popular maps. There were Korean teams playing Artanis on this map even before his rework. That has made him so much more popular, especially in the North American scene. So I like the Artanis ban and the Diablo ban here. Both teams just kind of wanting to mitigate the amount of just really impactful initiation that the other team can have. So we want to look quickly at what the next rotation is going to be like from Pepperidge Farm Remembers. The obvious thing they still need is a tank of some sort. Something like a Johanna, actually, I think would fit really well here. Vala is obviously can do a whole lot of damage if you let her just sit there and auto attack, so having the blind would help a little bit to mitigate that. And Johanna is also very good at just standing on points to help get that last little bit of beacon in order to get your Zergs to go and obliterate the enemy. They decided instead to go with ETC and Falstad. I like this rotation. The Falstad kind of helps to mitigate the global presence that Arthritic Abathurs has already managed to pick up. So it gives them a little bit of movement on their own if they need to go and contest something, and just basically even the odds if Arthritic Abathurs is using the globals to their advantage. And also the ETC kind of indicates that they're going for a little bit more of an aggressive playstyle. I expect to see a Burst Assassin as their last pick, because now they have ETC Power Slide into Malfurion Roots, into Face Melt, so that's a lot of CC in just 2 characters. And Gul'dan and Falstad don't really have a whole lot of burst damage. Most of their damage is damage over time. So if they're going for a heavy CC comp like that, I expect their final pick to help them get that kill on whoever it is ETC manages to initiate on. So the final picks from Arthritic Abathurs, I would expect to possibly see a second warrior here just to solidify that front line. It's not at all uncommon with Avala, just to make sure that she has that extra amount of survivability and peel. And I seem to have been correct. So it is Johanna. I like the Johanna pick here, as well as Kael'thas, which is really interesting. Kael'thas is not particularly popular as of late, and I really think that Kael'thas is taken as a realization that Arthritic Abathurs needs some wave clear of their own. Like when the enemy has Gul'dan, Gul'dan can more or less clear Zerg waves by himself if you can't get to him and kill him. So they both go with Johanna, who has some of the best wave clear amongst tanks, as well as Dehaka, which they picked up earlier, and then Kael'thas, who can't quite rival Gul'dan, but once you start getting those higher levels and getting Flame Strike talents, he can pack a pretty decent AoE punch as well. So it'll both be good for just poking down the opponent, as well as dealing with those Zerg waves if push comes to shove for Arthritic Abathurs. So the final pick coming in for Pepperidge Farmer members, I'm not really sure who I feel here. Something like an Alarak would synergize well with what they already have, but Alarak, as of late, has not been particularly popular, even amongst incredibly high-level players, especially like Rich in Korea, who's considered one of the best Alarak players there is. It doesn't seem to really favor him right now. Like most of the melee assassins that we see are Thrall, which was just picked up by Pepperidge Farmer members, Ragnaros, who is already banned, and Kerrigan, who is really only popular on Infernal Shrines, and a couple other maps in very particular circumstances. So we have our final teams now, and we will be getting on to Brax's holdout for this best of one. Looking at these two teams, I don't feel like either team particularly like swept the draft. And I think that's a good thing. It shows that both teams know what they're doing, and they're not particularly. I guess the best way to describe it is that a lot of the times I see games that seem to be over in draft. Like one team just really outdrafts the other team. They counter their team while doing something that enables them to take control of the map. And although it's entirely possible that one of these teams could just run away with it, looking at the actual compositions, it's not unnecessary. Or it's not necessary. Pepperidge Farmer members picked the Falstad and able to help deal with the globals. Despite the fact that... Yeah, excuse me, I need to take a sip of something before I choke here. Much better. Anyway, so Arthritic Abathurs, I really like their composition because they have kind of what I really like to see, which is this transition towards double tank, double assassin. Instead of having something where you have like a Johanna with like a Vala, a Leeming, and a Falstad in the background, and some support or something like that, they have two dedicated front lines, Dehaka and Johanna, two dedicated back lines, Vala and Kael'thas. They have both of the characters on the spectrum, basically. You have Vala, who's your sustained damage auto attacker, and Kael'thas, who is your burst mage, as well as the support. But at the same time, there's a lot of synergy for Pepperidge Farmer members, especially if you take into consideration their ultimates. So you have the CC synergy, basically, which is ETC, Malfurion, and Thrall, which is the ability to just lock an opponent down until they're blasted. But at the same time, you also have really strong ultimate synergy between like a stage dive from ETC and an earthquake from Thrall. Thrall throws out the earthquake, slows everyone down. ETC is able to dive in, do a bunch of damage, CC the backline, allow the rest of the team to catch up. There's just a lot of wombo potential from Pepperidge Farmer members. Not the most I've ever seen, but enough to cause some damage. Now this is really interesting. It looks like Pepperidge Farmer members is going for a lane swap, basically. So they are, instead of meeting 4-for-4 bot lane, they're sending Thrall to do his best clearing bot, and are currently, if you see here, just like poking away at these towers. ETC actually falling really low. That was a bit of a risky maneuver there. It wouldn't have amounted to much, but it would have been kind of embarrassing. Meanwhile, it looks like that Arthritic Abathurs is responding in kind, trying to knock down this first tower. They actually have all 5 people here. They sent Dehaka bottom to begin with, knowing that he could just jump up top whenever he needed to. And I really don't know what to say right now. Looks like both teams are just gonna be fine eating away at each other's forts. The thing that I think is kind of obviously in favor of Pepperidge members right now is that Arthritic Abathurs did take a while to actually send Dehaka top lane. Oh wow, good drag coming in from Dehaka, and the structures are enough to kill the Gul'dan. That's sometimes you forget how much damage those can do in the early game. Good play here from Dehaka, helping to level out that EXP disparity that had come up because he took so long getting to lane, but it looks like he knew exactly what he was doing. Or maybe he just was able to take advantage of the Gul'dan's mispositioning. So right now, as near as I can tell, it looks like both teams are going to go for a fort. This is a strategy that I see from time to time, not usually in games that I play, but in games I watch at the competitive level. And so it's really interesting to see a Div 3 team pull this out. It looks like their focus is going to be on taking this early fort as soon as possible, even though it means they're going to end up trading it. Also, before I get on that tangent, I want to talk about this briefly too. I like the fact that they did decide to send Gul'dan here. One thing that I think is a little... Oh, another good drag coming in from Dehaka, but it is not quite enough to kill the Falstad. He still had too much health and he had no backup, but he's just applying some pressure here to make it hard for them to take this fort. Anyway, what I was saying before I saw that nice drag is that Thrall is an amazing solo laner, but he has pretty bad wave clear, and so you are like, okay, well, we need to send someone 1v4. Thrall's not the person you want to send because he's not going to be able to alleviate that pressure. You want to send Gul'dan, but if you do send Gul'dan, sometimes he might be just a little too far forward. And even though this is actually a fairly CC light comp right here, at least in terms of initiation, like the only real hard CC is Kael'thas's Gravity Lapse. But they still have like enough kind of soft CC, the slow on Brightwing's Polymorph, the slow from Johanna's Q, as well as the pull from her W, and they were able to get the kill on Gul'dan. I still think Gul'dan's the right choice to have here. You might just need to play a little further back, just because Gul'dan is going to have a much easier time of clearing the waves than Thrall is. We see once again Gul'dan probably stepping a little too far forward. Nice initiation from ETC, but Johanna does have the Iron Spoon, is able to walk away. Vala, however, is taking a lot of punishment. It looks like with the help of the additional move speed from Brightwing that Vala will be able to get away, and Johanna as well with the Iron Skin is able to get further. Good Gravity Lapse coming in from Kael'thas, but he stands a little too far forward, gets blasted by the ETC and mouth combo. That's exactly what I was talking about that I think Pepperidge Farm has going for them, is that if they do manage to get that initiation from ETC, followed by the nice mouth root, it's going to be very difficult for the squishier members of Arthritic Abathurs to deal with that combo. So taking a look top lane real quick, we see what I was kind of mentioning in the draft, in that Dehaka is probably one of the strongest solo laners, mainly just because of his sustainability and his ability to wave push. It's not because he can bully someone in the same way that Thrall has always been able to, just by spamming Chain Lightning and using his Frostwolf Resilience in order to heal off any trades, but just in the sense that he's just going to push every wave that comes up super fast. Another initiation coming in from Malth and ETC. Kael'thas taking about half of his life, and Johanna does manage to come in and kind of mitigate that using her abilities to just kind of distract the enemy team, killing them away, and is able to save Kael'thas's life. Bit of a brawl going on in top lane, and Thrall just can't do much to Dehaka, unfortunately. If he can kind of poke at him from a distance, but if he gets into range... Oh wow, while I was busy talking about that brawl top lane, it looks like ETC most likely got another power slide onto Johanna and was able to get the kill with the help of Gul'dan in the back. I imagine that Johanna's Iron Skin was not quite yet off the cooldown again, which would probably be why she was unable to escape her fate that time. Good poke coming in from Gul'dan here. That's something else that a lot of people really like about Gul'dan on this map, is that when you're kind of in this neutral area where neither team is really able to initiate on the other one, Gul'dan can do a lot of damage just by throwing out that E from time to time. Dehaka taking a lot from Thrall and Falstad. Really good gank from Falstad, jumping up with his global, catching Dehaka off guard. Dehaka does not have a strong disengage, so he was unable to escape. They did end up sacrificing the bottom beacon for it, meaning it will be just a little bit longer until they can start channeling for the Zerg, but I still think it's an overall trade in their favor. We see that the XP lead is starting to creep in their direction, meaning they will most likely hit 10 first, especially if they manage to knock this fort down. A good power slide from ETC. Bala taking a lot of damage, and despite the fact that it was a 3v4, a good pick from Flava Flav on ETC. Turns a 3v4 into a 3v3, and if you can't win the 3v4, you're definitely not going to win the 3v3. This allows them to get and channel the second beacon. Falstad is still top lane, so it's 2v2. They should be able to hold this. Beacon is already ticking up to 80%, but it looks like instead of just standing their ground, they are going to give it up for now. Oh, I may have spoken too soon. They initiate on Brightwing. I just now noticed that Thrall is very low in mana, so that might have been why they were hesitant. Brightwing taking a lot of damage. Will Falstad be able to catch up? It doesn't look like it, despite the fact that Brightwing's almost dead. Dehaka is full health, putting a lot of pressure onto Thrall. Meanwhile, on the bot, ETC was trying to apply pressure to the beacon. He did a power slide on Johanna. Johanna using Iron Skin to try to get away. Malfruit hasn't gone down yet, but despite having a Loon's Grace, he does not quite have the range to land that root. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Thrall, it looks like he's just about to die. He does go down to Dehaka. It's really unfortunate for Pepperidge Farmer members right now that they're applying a lot of pressure to Brightwing, but unfortunately just do not have the tools to finish the job. And so Falstad is going to go back. Will probably just jump back with his global. ETC going to kind of, looks like he's trying to sneak this beacon here. If he can hold that for just a few seconds, unless Dehaka lands a dragon and pulls him off of it, they will be able to get the first Zerg wave going over in the favor of Pepperidge Farmer members. Now, this isn't as bad as it could be for Arthritic Abathurs, mainly because they still got about a 50, I think it was 52-54% wave themselves. So even though they have to deal with this huge wave pushing bot lane, they do have at least a small wave of their own that will prevent Pepperidge Farmer members from really capitalizing on the fact that they have the 10 wave right now. If this was an 100-0 wave, then Pepperidge Farmer members could very easily send all 5 members down, use the fact that they have ultimates to look for picks, and could possibly even take a keep on the first push. It wouldn't have been easy, but it would have been possible having that 10 advantage. The one thing I'm not a huge fan of is it doesn't look like they're going for any big plays. I may have spoken too soon. Power slide from ETC may just be waiting for Gul'dan to poke down the enemy team. Stage dive in from ETC in the backline. He's going for Vala. Face melt coming out to knock her back. She looks like she's dead due to the Echo Pedal from... Actually, no, ETC did not take Echo Pedal. I must have saw the wrong visual effect. Speaking of ETC, oh wow, I thought for sure he was a dead man there. Through the use of his guitar solo and Malfurion's healing, he's barely able to stay alive. And that is strong for Pepperidge Farmer members, but it's not really a huge play. It certainly helps them. Further that level lead. Has now an entire level lead ahead of Arthritic Abathurs, which is just compounded by the fact that the entire time Thrall and Falstad were able to actually push through the Zerg wave, only losing the front wall, and take down the fort that they'd been working on earlier, which is really just increasing the distance between the two teams. It's not uncommon to see a level lead of this magnitude on Braxis Holdout, just because it can be somewhat a snowballing map even after the changes that were made from the initial release that made it less snowbally. It still has the potential to be snowbally depending on how it's played. And so it really is on Pepperidge Farmer members to lose this game. Now, they seem to have it pretty firmly in their grasp. The ETC power slide in, blow up whoever you hit strategy is working for them right now, and there's no reason to believe that it'll stop working for them. I don't see any characters on the opposing team that are really going to hit a point where they can just stop ETC in their tracks. I will mention that even though they're already level 11, because not a lot has happened since then, that Arthritic Abathurs did manage to pick up their ultimates, which will certainly help them in the next fight. Power slide on Johanna, getting feared by the Gul'dan, taking a lot of damage, and unfortunately Brightwing went in to try to help and ends up just giving her life as well. That is very unfortunate for Johanna. As someone who plays a lot of Johanna, you are kind of in this weird situation where you feel safe because you have your trait, and you know that even if there's an ETC, that you should be able to shield out of it. The only problem is if you don't see the ETC coming, you might not be able to initiate the trait fast enough. I don't know if apart from like catching the ETC mid-power slide, if Johanna even had an opportunity to pop Iron Skin before that Gul'dan heal went off. That was just a really solid play from Pepperidge Farmer members, stacking their CC and blowing up really the bulkiest person on the enemy team. I personally, anyway, think that Johanna is a little bit bulkier than Dehaka. If Dehaka has max traits and gets a lot of ultimate value, then he can take more punishment, but generally speaking, Johanna's self-sustain from Regen Master in conjunction with her Iron Skin makes her a little harder to kill, but maybe that's just my opinion. I do want to note here that after getting that pick, Pepperidge Farm Remembers really is just commanding the map. They got both forts on the enemy side, have gone and taken, looks like they're grabbing the Siege now, grab their Bruiser, and after they got a nice pick on the Johanna, they went and got the boss, and now they're getting the Siege camp. They're just, as the professional casters say, they're just painting the map red right now. Dehaka is being a little adventurous here, going in, just trying to delay as long as possible. He might be in a little bit of trouble here. He's going for the cheeky recall. He decides it's too risky. He's now going to escape, but ETC is on the hunt. The team was busy clearing the boss and is not going to be there to back him up. That is a dead Dehaka if I've ever seen one. There's just too much CC. He's surviving a lot longer than I thought he would through the use of adaptation in his trait, but really he's only serving to stall at this point. He realized he was dead, just tried to keep his team safe for as long as possible. I also like what Arthritic Abathurs is trying here at least. They realize that they can't take a fight. They're down a talent tier. They don't have objectives to fall back to, meaning the forts. And so instead, they're just having the 3 Squisher members all stick together and soak and clear waves. And they're having Johanna, who is the most likely to be able to survive a gank, going and kind of getting the beacons just back and forth. Oh, while I was talking about Johanna, it looks like Vala might have stayed a little too long clearing that wave. And I think if this game goes over to Pepperidge Farm members, that's really what's going to be kind of the crux for Arthritic Abathurs, is that they just had one too many, or maybe two too many, a few too many pickoffs happen against them, where there's just one person stayed a little too long clearing a wave and got picked off by the ETC. Here's another example of it right now. You think you're safe in front of your gate, but if you're against an ETC, you're not safe. He can just power slide in, face melt you away from your team or your structures, especially if there's this solid CC follow-up from Afro Puff on Thrall and Nuka on Malfurion. You just can't afford to stand that far up by yourself when you don't have vision, or else they will punish you every single time, as Pepperidge Farm Remembers is demonstrating. So we see the Zerg wave pushing in now on the top keep. Meanwhile, the other members of the team are pushing down to the bottom keep, even though they don't have a minion wave to really help them right now. So it looks like that Kael'thas is going to be able to clear out this top wave fairly effectively with the help of Johanna, and they will manage to preserve the top keep. If they had really wanted to, like, Pepperidge Farm Members is up 3 whole levels, even though they didn't have Falstad. I don't know what the cooldown on Falstad's global is, but I think they could have pretty easily forced that bot keep. It's already very low. They have a full 3-level lead, complete with talent advantage. If they had wanted it, I think they could have taken it, but they realize that they have a tremendous lead right now and are just not going to play risky at all. They're just going to keep focusing on going around, getting picks, and using the fact that they have the huge level lead to their advantage. And there's the pick right there. Dehaka going in, actually probably looked like he was checking for boss, despite the fact that boss was down. Takes a lot of damage, gets almost full value from adaptation. Afro Puff goes really low, and this is the other thing that's makes it seem like Pepperidge Farm Remembers comp is just indomitable. Like, you have this amazing, like, team fight combo, a lot of pressure from Thrall's Earthquake. ETC can jump in from anywhere with stage dive. Gul'dan has been really on point with his fears. Silence coming in from Malfurion. You have this amazing team fight power as well as CC stacking. But at the same time, if you ever take a fight and then don't want it, you have Falstad to just reset the whole thing. So it's really going to be difficult. It was looking like it had turned into a good fight for Arthritic Abathurs with a really good Dehaka adaptation, basically letting him absorb all that damage. Speaking of Dehaka, gets initiated on by the Gul'dan Sphere. ETC tries to get the power slide, but does not quite have the range. Dehaka is able to kill the full with his trait. And a lot of damage coming in from Kael'thas. It looks like he's, let me check real quick. I don't believe that he has Convection stacked yet, but Burned Flesh here at level 7, dealing 8% of a hero's maximum health if at least 2 get hit by the Flame Strike. Even without Convection, still enough to apply a lot of pressure to the front line of Pepperidge Farm members, and they decide just to back out. They got the keep, they got what they came for, no need to stick around. They know they're not going to take core with all 5 members of the enemy team up. Might as well play it safe. Go take the siege camp, go take the cruiser camp, take a drink of something so your throat doesn't dry out. Oh wait, that's me, not them. Anyway, we see, really this is kind of the beginning of the end for Arthritic Abathurs unless they make a play here, and they know it as well. Daz going in on Johanna, getting a lot of damage on Thrall, but it is not quite enough. Dehaka taking a lot of punishment in return. Kael'thas in the back being pressured by ETC. Dehaka going ham right now, doing a lot of damage to all three members, but it looked like Adaptation was just a few milliseconds away from going off and possibly enabling him to get a kill. Really, this game, like Nuka, like Malfurion isn't the most difficult support to play, but you can still tell when a Malfurion is played really well, and that's what Nuka has been doing on this Mal. All of the heals on who they need to be. He's never out of position and where he might be initiated on and end up getting bursted before fight begins. And like the Twilight Dreams and the Roots have just always been exactly when and where they need to be. Really impressive Malfurion play coming out from Nuka. Brightwing, unfortunately a little out of position, does have the blink heal, but unfortunately doesn't really have a good target to jump to. Vala and Johanna kind of stay in the back to try to protect the Brightwing. End up being a little out of position, unfortunately. Dehaka comes in trying to save the Vala, but it's too late. Nice drag on the Falstad, but with Vala dead, they do not have the damage to follow up on it, especially with Kael'thas clearing the top lane. And it would seem that Vala ends up paying for Brightwing's sins. And it's just same stuff, different day for Pepperidge Farmer members and Arthritic Abathurs. Once again, one character not quite where they need to be. ETC immediately sees and capitalizes on that positioning mistake, and there's just not a whole lot that Arthritic Abathurs can do about it. They don't have a burst healer. Like Uther's kind of a bad example because he's not really popular right now, but someone with a cleanse and a lot of burst healing. Or Lucio would be a good example if he hadn't been banned, of someone who can help get people out of a situation that's really bad. Amazing damage coming from Gul'dan. Basically took Brightwing from full to zero all by himself. ETC jumps in with the stage dive just to finish it off. Looks like he might be going for another initiation here, not stopping yet. Is taking a lot of damage from Vala straight and already has very low health. Root from Malfurion does not quite catch the Vala. Thrall looking for a Feral Spirit, does not throw it out. May have been on cooldown, may have just decided that they didn't want this initiation anymore. They have the 100% Zerg wave pushing through bot lane with the boss. Brightwing will be up before this is encore, I do think, but it may not be enough. Dehaka getting power slid on by ETC, ends up going down again. Kael'thas doing his best to clear the wave. Good fear from Gul'dan, knocking Kael'thas out of position. And really, at the beginning, I mentioned that I didn't think, looking at either comp, that one of them was a lot stronger than the other. But actually watching them being executed, Pepperidge Farmer members had a very definite game plan, and they stuck to it, and it was simple, but it worked. It was use ETC to kill people who are where they shouldn't be. And if push comes to shove, you can gust them away. That's what they did the entire game. They only even needed the gust one time, if I'm counting correctly. And it works perfectly for them. Like, you get picks with the enemies down a man. They can't really contest the objectives very well. You use those objectives to your advantage to get more picks. You just snowball on and on and on. And that's what we saw. What was initially a very small XP lead turned into a 3-level lead later in the game. Really impressive play coming out from both teams. But I must hand it to Pepperidge Farmer members for this game. They had a game plan and they stuck to it. That's about all I can say about it. It's really impressive to see a team that knew so well the exact strategy they wanted to run. I'm the kind of player that a lot of the time will be like, all right, well, these characters are good, so we'll kind of try this. They didn't just draft characters. They had a game plan the entire time, and the game plan wasn't just, let's try to kill people and win the game. That's kind of what it was, but the way they were going about killing people using the ETC with the Mal follow-ups, the damage from Gul'dan for the wave clear. Their team was incredibly well balanced, but also well focused. And I really think that's what helped them take away Pepperidge Farmer members, along with a few positioning mistakes on Arthritic Abathurs. But it's really hard to position against a team that aggressive. Like ETC, if you are just a little too far up, that's the whole problem with ETC, is that he can cast that power slide like that, jump in on you when you least expect it. And even if you think you're safe, the problem is that you don't have to just kind of be okay. Like, if you're most of the time safe, that's not enough. The second you're like a foot too far up, ETC will capitalize on that. That's one of the reasons I love playing ETC so much, is that you can just kind of dance around. Usually if you're on your mount, that helps a little bit because it gives you that extra speed. Just kind of wait for a squishy just to step up that much and immediately go on him. If your team has follow-up, that person's just dead pretty much unquestionably, unless the support on the enemy team is just a god with cleanse. So it's one thing that was unfortunate we didn't really see come out was I don't believe, if memory serves, that Brightwing took cleanse. Brightwing does have one of the more expensive cleanses in the game, if that makes sense. The cleanse talent competes for 2 other very powerful talents, Mystified and Phase Shield on that tier. So I can't blame Brightwing for not taking it if she didn't. If she did take it, she may not just have been in position, because most of the initiations were on targets that were already kind of isolated. So even then, it would have been difficult for Brightwing to come in and save the day. Nonetheless, amazing games coming out from both teams. Pepperidge Farm members, just amazing execution, good game strategy. I can't give it to them enough. They really knew what they were doing that game. They had planned for that. They were also the ones that picked the map, so that might be indicative as to why they were able to execute that strategy so well, is that they knew where they were going, so they were able to plan ahead of time, and Arthritic Abathurs might not have had the time to adjust to that. That's one thing I'm not a huge fan about Best of Ones, is that it does seem to, even though first pick is very powerful, especially if there are a couple really strong characters on a given map, like the ability to be the first one to pick up Ragnaros on a map like Brax's Holdout, or the first one to pick up Sylvanas on Battlefield of Eternity, even though she's kind of fallen out of favor. You kind of get the idea. Even though there is a lot of advantage going towards the first pick, in these best of ones, I do feel like it allows the other teams to kind of catch the home team off guard if they are able to get that small advantage of knowing where they are going ahead of time. Even if the other team does usually find out a little bit before the game starts if the map is posted. Nonetheless, I will always favor best of threes if for no other reason than it gives me more games to cast. But that is it for today. I will be back casting more Chair League games, if not tomorrow, Wednesday. I have been Verdestrom. If any of you people are actually here, thank you for coming out, and I will see you next time.